Welcome to Lifestyles of the Strange and Exotic Random Book Review. And this was a pickup at the Will. I think it was $1, because I think soft covers are $1. I didn't even bother opening the pages. It just said Treasury of Egyptian Mythology, and I'm like, yeah, it's coming home with me. And you add National Geographic with that, and I'm like, ah. And OMG, this thing is awesome. God's only knows what the hell this was originally. Where's my notes? As if I need notes. I've still got a little bit more to do. Insert awkward pause here. Okay. Now, this is awesome. It's Egyptian mythology, classic stories of gods, goddesses, monsters, and mortals. And it goes through the... There's kind of different versions, but basically Ra, his children, who are Shu, Tefnut, and Nut, who are basically moisture, air, and earth. And then their children, who are basically the goddesses and gods that everybody sort of instinctively knows, like Isis, Horus, Anubis, Thoth. But what's cool is that she uses their Egyptian names, or at least some of their... Like, she spells Jehuti with the T, so it's Tahuti, but there's like a few different versions. We know them as Thoth. So it's really kind of cool, and it's basically each god's sort of story, yet it still intertwines with like the greater whole, where you have, you know, the story of Isis and how do I do this? Isis and Osiris, and how, you know, Set destroyed Osiris and Isis was devastated, in this long kind of complicated narrative where, you know, Set traps Osiris in a box and then like pours molten lead over him, and of course Osiris dies, which is how he becomes a god of the underworld. Well, Isis finds him, then Set finds him again, chops him up, and, you know, there's this, it's like this ebb and flow of this like massive, really interesting story, but it goes into like the background of like Nephthys, who is Set's sister wife, who you really don't quite appreciate. She's just sort of there, and you kind of understand her more, and it's really well done. And it's not done in a way where it's like most of my books, kind of like encyclopedic. It's done in a sort of kids story way, but not dumbed down either. It's very approachable. You can easily understand these stories, easily identify with even the different gods and goddesses and their attributes. And like here, she uses the Egyptian name, like Ra, the Greek name would be Helios. There's two versions of Horus, sort of. You have Horus the Younger, who is basically Horus the Lord, the falcon god. Then you have Horus the Elder, who is like the uncle, sort of Horus, but he sort of came... He's just sort of like this weird random, not necessarily random, but this sort of malleable, maybe, just sort of ever-shifting type of god. Seth is the Greek name, so basically, if your name is Seth, you are named after the god of evil. Or god of everything not so great. Which I always find funny, because does anybody really know the meaning behind it? Anywho, but in Egypt, Seth was the really bad god that had no redeemable attributes whatsoever. Aset is Isis, or East. Nebet-Hut was Nephthys. Inpu is Anubis. So yeah, when you get some of the other gods that might be not necessarily lesser on the scale, but you might not know, like Nit and Neith. Sekhmet, maybe Khnum, which Kefren what is going to be named. You almost became Khnum. Sobek, most people know who Bastet is. Has a little bit on like hieroglyphs and kind of how the names and the translations of how he kind of got to how you say these words in like the Western tongue kind of thing. So she does kind of give you a base on sort of like the culture and, you know, the history and the aspects of it. And you get every chapter there's this little cartouche of like a little nugget of information that's sort of based in like the modern world and the study of it, basically outside of the mythology. Like this is language, and it'll have a picture, and it goes, a strong ocean wave at sunset illustrates the majesty and the power of water. And then it kind of goes into whatever it's explaining. This is language, the alphabet, and the artwork is really interesting too. See, this is like the cover art for the particular god. This is Osiris, or Usir. And then it goes God of the Afterlife. So it's done really, really beautifully. It's stylized, but it's still Egyptian. And I love how each page sort of has the stars that are done like, who's the pharaoh? I don't think it was Pepi. He came after. Pepi came first, but it was it was before Ramesses, probably even before King Tut. Anywho, this particular pharaoh, whose name escapes me, had basically the creation story plastered all over his tomb, and you'd have, all the stars on the ceiling. I can picture the tomb even. His name escapes me, but it's done sort of in a similar way. So I love just how the book is presented. Here's Inpu, or Anubis, and the way it's written too, you feel like you can relate to the gods and goddesses because they're put in such a approachable way. Like, they have human attributes, like it wasn't Tefnut. Was it Tefnut? I just read it too and I forgot now. Well, it wasn't Nephthys either, because she wasn't the one that was getting jealous. Lucere. I just read this not more than 2 seconds ago. Tefnut. It was Tefnut. Where she felt like she wasn't getting appreciated enough. Where it was like, okay, well, Tefnut is the goddess of moisture. In the desert, moisture's pretty damn important, And Isis was starting to be called, she of like the cooling breeze. And Tefnut was sort of Tefnut's thing, but somehow everybody was attributing her attributes. Tefnut's attributes were being attributed to Isis, and it was pissing Tefnut off. So much so, she was throwing a tantrum, which obviously resulted in, Egypt being, in a drought, where Thoth, Jehuti, being sort of the, in some ways almost just as underappreciated as Tefnut, where he was doing all the work, but Ra was getting all the credit, had to go and kind of go, Tefnut, you are awesome. People with a brain know you're awesome. Calm the fuck down and come back and, do your thing. So, fully satiated with compliments from, the right people, she came back and did her thing. But it was like, you could just relate to Tefnut's frustration, where you're like, I had this task, this is what people are, relying on me for, yet this Yatsu who can't do diddly shit is getting all the credit. I can see how Tefnut would go ballistic. So, the gods of ancient Egypt have these aspects that are just as human as human beings, you know what I mean? It's like, they're as human as human can get. So that's why I love, and have always been drawn to Egyptian mythology. And this is just such a fun book, and you can get the stories and sort of the lessons and sort of, appreciate this version of the stories. There's in different eras. I mean, Egypt lasted millennium. I mean, Egypt still exists. I mean, it's different, but it's still a concept to be had. So from the ancient fathers, their core beliefs, as different cultures interacted and stuff, and different cities would have different gods, and they might merge, and then the gods' attributes kind of merged. Like, Tefnut has a lot of attributes of Sekhmet. So, the stories would change kind of over time. There's always that similar nugget, but the names might change. It might change because they're in a different region. So this is sort of like one looking at a three-dimensional object from one side. You know what I mean? It's like seeing the full moon as the moon is full tonight, where the moon is obviously a sphere. Well, you're only seeing one side of the sphere. So this is kind of like one side of the sphere. But it is an awesome side. And the back doesn't quite give you the lovely nugget. This came out in 2013 and goes, "The god Ra sprang to life with a word already in his mouth. More bubbled up, words now crowded in his mouth. They trampled his tongue and pushed against his teeth. His lips, he had so many words to enunciate. The need hammered at him. From that very need came lungs and a voice box and muscles to make it all move." Which, if anybody has got that thought to fire, sounds very strange that in ancient Egypt the creation myth was, again, it's different names for different gods, but Ra came into being by the word. In the beginning there was the word. So, so yes, if you are remotely interested in ancient Egyptian anything, you gotta find this book. I'm sure it's on Amazon. I kind of sort of know how to link things, but I'm not quite sure how it links things, and so I'm still kind of like, my brain's still like, nope, don't do it yet, so Google it. Until that day I can figure this crap out. It is so worth it, especially if you're a younger person who's just starting into Egyptian mythology, anybody who's interested in mythology at all. How can you not enjoy this book? It is so approachable, and it's not like Dr. Seuss levels. Like, it's approachable, it's easy to read, yet there's so much in here. I've been loving it. I am so very happy. So, very much a 5-star book in my bookshelf, and it's not even going to go buried in my bookshelf. It's going to go into my special spot right there. So, so a very giddy, happy 5-star for Egyptian Mythology, The Treasury of, by National Geographic. And National Geographic's always cool. And I had a relative that gave us a subscription to National Geographic up until the day she died. So, because she had a table in her living room and she had a bunch of books. It was like a, I don't know if it was meant to be a bookshelf, but it meant to fit like nice big books, and every time we kind of visited, they'd be talking about crap I was not remotely interested in, so there were like a few books that were instantly where I would go. And I think having seen that, she knew that we were connected on that sort of level, so National Geographic is special to me. So, and then, when she passed away, I got to have those books, so that's awesome. So, ramble over. Thank you for watching. Do remember to comment, rate, share, and subscribe. There's always room for more at The Strange and Exotic. See you next time. Bye.